Good morning, everyone. This is the Spartan. It's September 6th, Wednesday, hump day. Just going to do a little brief news update today. I've kind of shortened it up. A couple of days ago, I went way over 48 minutes, and then yesterday, I got it under 30 minutes. Obviously, kind of adjust things based on the amount of news that's out there. I don't use these updates for any sort of like detailed map updates or anything like that. So it's really just kind of a brief overview of some news items that will, either catch you up or start your day off or pique your interest, that sort of thing, and give you something to look into. So to start off with, as always, we'll cover off the Russian losses for the last 24 hours. A little uptick in the number of personnel that were lost, 610, 8 tanks, which is also a fairly solid number, I guess, if you want to call it that. Ukrainian losses are mounting as well, as we saw yesterday. There was a T-64, there was a Challenger, there was other hardware that was lost. That's going to happen as when you don't have a stagnant front line, when you've got one or both militaries pushing for new territory, new ground, to try to either move the other one out or take contested ground, that sort of thing. So that being said, I will keep repeating it until the day this war ends, and then long afterwards. I don't know how the Russians continue to operate and field a military when they're just losing such astronomical amounts of men and machines on a daily basis. But that's where we are. 12 armored personnel carriers, again, 36 artillery systems. I really hope one day when this war is over that somebody breaks down exactly the strategy of how they targeted, how they decided to target, how they targeted, how they executed the removal, the destruction of these artillery pieces on a regular basis. I believe it's a combination of U.S. and NATO supplied intelligence, satellite reconnaissance, that sort of thing, drone, ISR, maybe human intelligence, counter battery radar, HIMARS, etc. But it's astounding that somebody's losing 100 pieces of artillery every 3 days. One MLRS system, one anti-aircraft warfare system, 7 UAVs, which means the drone attacks on Ukraine over the last 24 hours or 36 hours or so was a lot less than typically. Usually when the Ukrainians strike, let's say, a bunch of strategic bombers and blow them up or whatever, then the knee-jerk reaction from the Russians is to fire off a bunch of cruise missiles and Shahed drones, and then there seems to be a lull when the Ukrainians haven't made any big newsworthy strikes. The Russians tend to pump their brakes as well, and don't fire off as many grocery store and school and hospital hunting drones and cruise missiles. Okay, so moving on to the next item. I'll pause this. So yesterday I did a little bit of a summary rant, etc., on all of the different Russian strikes on NATO, targeting NATO assets, striking NATO territory, harassing NATO assets and territory, etc. And I didn't even go into the full detail. Jake Bro went into a little more detail, and others have as well. I mean, the list is endless of the amount of airspace incursions, U.S. and NATO drones being targeted over the Black Sea, being targeted in Syria, places like that. Even the helicopter incursion into Poland I didn't touch on, etc. But anyways, the main thing, the main gist of yesterday's sort of diatribe by myself was to basically talk about the fact that Article 5 probably could have been enacted several times by now. And it's gotten to the point where Russia seems to be almost either accidentally or intentionally pushing buttons and seeing if they can get a larger reaction out of NATO. Maybe it's to make NATO hesitant to support Ukraine. Maybe it's to give them fodder to amp up their local population to say, look, it truly is us against NATO. But everybody better register for the military. I don't know. But when a country like Romania will come out and just come up to the line of full-on denial that the drone struck their territory, and yet the Ukrainians have cameras and radar and monitoring systems basically on their entire border, and came right out and said, yes, one of the Shahed drones struck in Romania. I think they're looking for a little bit more of a sort of a team approach and a step up to say, like give a warning to Russia, or possibly use that as an impetus to amp up the grain deal that's being sort of worked out between the Black Sea nations and Ukraine. I don't know, but when they have receipts, they have receipts. And basically, in the early morning of September 4th, a Russian Shahed drone crashed and exploded inside Romania. It was a NATO member, as we know. Russia was attacking the port of Ismail next to the Romanian border, and this is from geo-confirmed. So basically, they did what I couldn't do. I tried to use the NASA firm's radar and identify the explosion of the Shahed and put that on the Romanian territory around the right time. I thought I had it, but it was the one that I found. I did find a firm signature in Romanian territory, but it was too far away. Firm's radar just, shows explosions, fires, that sort of stuff that are, I believe, like a 50 by 50 feet by 50 feet square piece of terra firma land that is burned, exploded, or whatever, and it's got to be visible for, I believe it's a couple of minutes at least, in order for it to show up on firms. But I apologize, I don't have the exact breakdown of it. But long story short is I couldn't geolocate it 100%, or I would have included it yesterday. But the folks at GeoConfirmed did. And so first of all, here's the video. Let's go full screen. That is the Shahed drone crashing across the Danube River in Romania. It's basically like a little snake curve in the river, and the Russians hit the wrong side of the snake curve. And here's some additional geolocating that basically, so I'll read this for anybody just who's not reading themselves. The explosion of a Russian Shahed suicide drone has been geolocated to Romania. The attack was directed against the Ukrainian port of Reni, but one of the drones overhit the target and struck Romanian territory 300 meters across the river. Will NATO react? We know the answer to that. So this is a camera view from the Ukrainian side of the river, and you can basically see this little what looks to be a pier with lights on it, and another pier to the right, I think, with a yellowish light on it. That's hard to tell, I apologize. And there's the aftermath, and there's the actual original explosion. So again, just to kind of put a bow on yesterday's summary report rant, that Romania was struck. A NATO country was struck by an Iranian-built, Russian-owned and operated suicide drone. And again, like Poland, NATO will not react. Harsh words, write a note to the manager. What will it take? It'll take an accidental shoot down of a NATO plane where Ukraine can't be blamed, the sinking of a ship where Russia will claim it was an errant mine, sea mine. What will it take? How, if you don't nip it in the bud now and basically let Russia know that they've got to stop, they'll keep pushing the boundaries, and literally the boundaries are borders. And eventually, we run the risk, statistically, we run the risk of Russia escalating this accidentally, because you've got the lowest common denominator, which is poorly trained, poorly educated, poorly motivated, poorly paid conscripts, MOVICs, etc., running multi-million-dollar pieces of military hardware and with their hands on the triggers of many, many, many weapons. And you're trusting these people that you forced off the street to not shoot a NATO target and instead shoot a Ukrainian target. Good luck. That's not going to last. My opinion. And in the along the same vein, yesterday Vladimir Putin was speaking at a conference. I believe it was after the Sochi conference with Turkey's president, and he touched on, obviously this is a setup, this is a Russian reporter, but he touched on the impacts of the Holocaust, and he walks out of the conference, and lo and behold, this reporter is waiting for him and gets to ask him more clarification questions about the Holocaust. So the reporter says, may I ask you for an important clarification? We have just heard you dialogue about how many Jews were killed by Nazi collaborators in Ukraine.
Можно важное уточнение? Мы вот сейчас только что слышали ваш диалог по поводу того, сколько было убито евреев пособниками фашистов на Украине.
First of all, we were talking about civilians in the Soviet Union as a whole. It turned out that it was over 13 million people, and then a separate question was asked about the tragedy. And trust that this whole interaction is completely set up and ready to go. Holocaust and the murder of Jews. Then the logical question is, how does all this relate to the fact that modern Ukraine, here we go.
Логичный вопрос. Вот как это все вяжется с тем, что современную Украину со всем тем, что
With all that is happening there now is led by an ethnic Jew. After all, Western leaders are always pointing out to Russia that what kind of Nazism is there if they have a Jew at the helm?
там происходит,
Like, how can Ukraine be
евреи, ведь западные лидеры все время указывают России,
anti-Semitic if they've got a Jewish person leading the country? Yes, I've already mentioned that. I probably can't add anything new, but I think it's important to repeat, namely that the Western supervisors, another translation has this as the Western masters, put at the head of modern
считаю важным повторить это, а именно то, что западные кураторы поставили во главе современной Украины
Ukraine, a man who is an ethnic Jew with Jewish roots, with Jewish ancestry. And in this way, in my opinion, they cover up the anti-human essence. Anti-human essence,
человека
which is the foundation
корнями, с происхождением еврейским. И таким образом, на мой взгляд, они как бы прикрывают такую античеловеческую сущность, которая положена во фундамент, в основу современного.
of the basis of the modern state. So Ukraine has an anti-human essence as the basis of its modern state. It makes the whole situation extremely disgusting that that an ethnic Jew covers up the glorification of Nazism and covers up those
Украинского государства.
who headed
И это делает всю ситуацию в высшей степени отвратительной. Тем, что этнический еврей прикрывает героизацию нацизма и прикрывает тех, кто возглавлял в свое время
At the time, the Holocaust in Ukraine, which was the extermination of 1.5 million people.
холокостного поколения. А это уничтожение 1,5 миллиона человек.
Можно важное уточнение?
There's one person who's responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people inside Ukraine, and it is definitely not Vladimir Zelensky. So you can imagine having a neighbor like that with that hate and disgust and ability to lie, just a bald-faced lie, bald puffy-faced lie, and to say things like, and human essence basically is the is the foundation of the Ukrainian state. Excuse me. So when someone approaches Ukraine or in the news says, hey, you should sit down and negotiate with them, you should allow them to keep some land in Crimea or the Donbass, and things will go just great. This is your neighbor. This is the person that you want to negotiate with. This person does not think of you as humans and is always looking for the next opportunity to take your land, take your children, and kill your women, men and women. And what kind of a country is he in charge of? This is the Russian public toilets at the Kansk train station. I kid you not, this is not doctored. You can decide if this is a credible voice when 2/3 of the country does not have indoor plumbing, electricity, gas, etc. And this is what is at a train station, a flush bucket. And to finish off with a slightly brighter note, Vladimir Zelensky recently met with some soldiers and was provided with a commemorative t-shirt that said Russian warship, go F yourself in case of negotiations with Putin. Look at the absolute joy on Zelensky's face. He looks good there. He looks rested. Anyways, that's it for today. A little shorter one. Not as light as I would like it to be, but it's not supposed to be light all the time. Sometimes it's just, it is what it is. Please like, please subscribe, please share, please comment, and tell someone you love them. Slava Ukraini.